Here I have a few of my giant tomatoes. We have Harry Potter, Hermione, and Ron Weasley. They're not my biggest giant tomatoes, they're all around the 2-pound range, but they have the same genetics as my state record tomato hybrid, which is 5.19 pounds. So I am definitely saving these seeds to use for next year. Saving seeds from tomatoes is a little different than other seeds. You don't just harvest the seeds and rinse them and dry them. You have to put the seeds through a fermentation process. The fermentation process takes about 4 days, and the purpose of it is to protect against seed-borne bacterial canker. So it helps make your seeds less prone to disease in future years. Part of the fermentation process is actually going to result in a layer of mold on your seeds, and you actually want that. So don't freak out. It's kind of a weird process, but I've done it before and it works, and that's what they tell you to do. So if it works, why change it? There's actually 2 ways to go about getting these seeds fermented. The first is you can just allow the fruit to sit after you harvest it and wait until it softens, becomes mushy, or even begins to rot. Then you squeeze out the seeds and they should be good. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to harvest the seeds and ferment them in a jar. So that's the way I'm going to show you how to do it, and we'll see how it goes. We're going to work with Hermione here. She's the most normal shaped tomato of the bunch. Most of the giant tomatoes are fused blossoms, so there's different lobes, and cutting them, it's just weird. So you just go with what you got. Hermione, you can see she doesn't look ripe. I actually picked her almost a month ago, but I've kept her stored in the fridge and she's just stayed this color. So even though she's not technically fully red and ripe, I think the seeds will be mature enough and be just fine. But typically you do want a fully mature tomato that's totally red all around. So we'll see what happens with this. We're going to do some germination testing of the seeds, and if they're good, they're good, and if they're not, they're not. So for her, I'm actually going to cut her horizontally. And she's got a lot of flesh in there. That's probably why she's so heavy. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use my fingers and just scoop the seeds out. So anywhere where I see a little compartment with seeds, I'm going to scoop it out. Sometimes it gets a little messy. With these big tomatoes, you never know where these compartments are, so you just gotta open them up and find the seeds. Some people use spoons. Honestly, I just use my fingers. I find that it's easier. And the seeds are in this gelatinous-y material. You want that gelatinous material to be in there with the seeds. That helps with the fermentation process. The actual flesh of the tomato, I'm going to save and use it to make pizza sauce, or pasta sauce, or salsa, or whatever I'm in the mood for. So here you can see we have all the flesh of the tomato, and we're going to eat that. Even though it's a giant fruit, the tomatoes actually taste pretty good, so I've heard. So we're going to turn that into pizza sauce. We have the seeds over here in the gelatinous goop, and then here we have a mason jar that we have labeled with the name of the tomato and the date that we're working with. And now we're just gonna put all these seeds into the mason jar. I'll just use my finger to scoop the rest out. We're just gonna add a little bit of water. Shake it around a little for good measure. And then we're just going to take a paper towel and put a rubber band over it. We're going to leave that for a few days in a dark area and let it ferment. I have my seeds here stored out of direct sunlight, and once a day I just take my jar here and I just swirl it around a few times, and I do that once a day. That helps speed up the fermentation process, and we'll do that once a day and I will show you the final product. Here you can see one of my jars has developed a layer of mold on top of it, and that is exactly what you want, even though it doesn't look that great. So once you see that layer of mold, it is time to move to the next step.
I'll spend a few minutes washing the seeds, and I use my hands to help break up the tomato flesh and help separate it from the seeds. I have OCD, so this takes a while for me. After that, you are going to put your seeds in a bowl and fill it with water. The flesh of the tomato will float in the water, and the seeds will sink to the bottom. You'll notice that some of the seeds float to the top, but these are usually non-viable seeds, so I just pour them out. I slowly pour the water out so that the flesh comes out with it. I do this a few times, filling it with water, dumping it, filling it with water, dumping it out, filling it with water, dumping it out, until the seeds are fairly clean. Then I place them on a screen. I like to pat them dry with a towel, although in this case they all just stuck to the towel, which was kind of annoying. I use my hands to spread them out as much as I can. Then I put a fan on it for a few days. Once they seem relatively dry, I put them on a smaller plate to continue drying even more and ensure they have had enough time to dry. At this stage, I'll use my fingers to break up any clumps of seeds that have stuck together. Once they are ready after a week or two, you can put them in your seed packets to store for the winter.